All right, let's dive into one of the most incredible heists in British history, the Securitas Depot Robbery. February 2006, Tunbridge, England. Picture this. A seemingly ordinary depot, millions of pounds, gone. Almost 53 million pounds sterling vanished. Poof, just like that.
Yeah,
Another 154 million left untouched. Why would they leave so much behind? What happened? That's what we're here to uncover.
it's a fascinating story, for sure.
Absolutely. We've got news reports, court transcripts, even some first-hand accounts. We're going to piece together this crazy heist. From the planning to the wild chase, it's unbelievable. Seriously, it's like something straight out of Hollywood.
You're not kidding.
So before we jump into the action, let's set the stage.
Okay, so the Securitas Depot. It wasn't just some random cash stash. It was a key part of the Bank of England's cash distribution network. Think of it as a giant vault. Brand new money came in, used banknotes were stored. They were either put back into circulation or destroyed.
And in 2006, Securitas was handling all of this for Barclays, who built the depot back in 1980. They chose Tunbridge because it was close to 3 police stations. They figured that would deter criminals. Kind of ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, very. But the depot itself was like a fortress. Layers of security, reinforced walls, alarms, cameras, the whole 9 yards.
How did anyone even think they could rob this place?
Well, you've got to consider what they were protecting. Inside, stacks and stacks of banknotes, bundled into bricks, different colors for different denominations, green for 5 pounds, blue for 10 pounds, red for 20 pounds, yellow for 50 pounds. And they had over 200 million pounds in cash just sitting there. A tempting target for anyone brave enough, I guess.
Or crazy enough, right?
You could say that.
But a heist this big, it takes more than just guts. It takes serious planning. And usually an inside man.
Absolutely. And in this case, the inside man was the depot manager, Colin Dixon. Lived a quiet life in Herne Bay with his wife and kid, but because of his job, he had a lot of security training.
Makes sense. You don't want to accidentally tell someone where you live when you're handling that much money.
Nope. He was told to change up his route to work, don't give out personal details, even how to handle encounters with the police. It's all pretty standard stuff. But for him, that training, it became terrifyingly real.
So who are the masterminds behind this whole thing? The ones who targeted Colin?
Well, it was an interesting group. Lee Murray, he was a professional cage fighter, bit of a reputation for drug dealing. And Lee Arusha, he was a roofer, also did some cage fighting. I guess they had bigger ambitions than just the ring.
Sounds like they walked straight out of a Guy Ritchie film.
Yeah, they definitely had the attitude and the connections. But they needed someone who knew the Securitas Depot inside and out. That's where Emir Heist comes in. He knew Russia, and somehow he managed to get a job at the depot.
The classic inside job. I bet Colin's security training was suddenly very useful to the wrong people.
Exactly. He's and I started gathering information. Subtly, of course. The layout, the security, shift patterns, everything.
Yeah.
And the rest of the gang. They were busy doing their own surveillance. They even had a hidden camera.
Wow. They were going for a full-on Ocean's 11 vibe, huh? But I'm guessing things weren't as smooth as a Hollywood movie.
You'd be right. They made some pretty big blunders. For a group that was supposed to be so meticulous, I mean, like the spy camera they got for Heist, they got glue on the lens when they were setting it up. They had to send 2 guys, Paul Allen and Kane Patterson, all the way back to Derbyshire to get it fixed. And then they got pulled over by the police on the way back.
Wait a minute. They got pulled over with a car full of spy gear? What happened?
Speeding. The car had no MOT. No insurance. It was like they were handing the police evidence.
Wow. And then there's Lee Murray.
Oh, yeah. Don't even get me started on him. Days before the robbery, he crashes his Ferrari in London, flees the scene, gets arrested nearby. But you want to know the craziest part?
Oh, I do. Tell me.
What he left in that Ferrari. 2 burner phones. The police found them. And guess what was on them? Numbers for other gang members. Pictures from a club, linking him to Allen and Patterson.
Unbelievable. Careless doesn't even begin to describe it. Were they really masterminds or just incredibly lucky?
Well, get this. They actually recorded themselves talking about the robbery plan on one of those burner phones. It's almost funny how close they came to sabotaging the whole thing before it even started.
Okay, so we've got our wannabe masterminds, their inside man feeding them info, and a depot manager whose life is about to change forever. This is already intense. Take us to the night of the heist, February 21st, 2006.
It all starts with Colin Dixon driving home. No idea what's about to happen. He's on the A249, and a car with flashing blue lights pulls him over.
Uh-oh. This doesn't sound good.
2 guys dressed as police officers. They tell him to turn off the engine, get out of the car. Colin thinks it's just a routine traffic stop, so he does what they say.
And just like that, he's trapped.
Exactly.
Hmm?
But they don't take him to a police station. They put him in handcuffs, throw him in a van,
Yeah.
and drive him to a farm. This is just the beginning of his nightmare.
This is chilling. What about his family?
They didn't escape either. Those fake police officers, they went to Colin's house in Herne Bay, told his wife, Lynn, that Colin had been in an accident, said they needed to get her and their son to the hospital.
They preyed on her worry for her husband. That's awful. What happened next?
Well, Lynn quickly figured out that something was wrong. This was no ordinary police escort. They took her and her son to that same farm where Colin was being held. They were all together again. But not how anyone would want.
So the family was trapped. What did the gang do then?
They started interrogating Colin, demanding details about the depot, everything, the layout, security protocols. They made it clear that he had to cooperate. His family's lives depended on it.
That's just heartbreaking. He was forced to help the people who were threatening his family, a nightmare scenario. But they needed him to get into the depot, right?
Absolutely. Around 1 a.m., they put Lynn and her son in the back of a lorry, put Colin in a car with some of the gang,
Yeah.
and they set off for the Securitas Depot.
So they took the family along, literally. What happened when they got to the depot?
This is where Heist, the inside man, comes in. One of the gang members, dressed as a police officer, goes with Colin to the pedestrian entrance.
They used that fake police officer trick again? That's bold.
And it worked. Colin rings the bell, security guard. He sees Colin with a police officer. He opens the door. No hesitation.
I bet that security guard felt sick the moment he realized what he'd done. Let the wolves right into the hen house.
I can only imagine. Once they're inside, they overpower the guard. And Colin. He's forced to press the button that opens the main gate, and that's when the rest of the gang drives in with the lorry. The heist was on.
Okay, so they're in. But how did they get past all the security and actually steal the money? That's what I want to know.
They were in all right. But remember, this place was a fortress. All those security measures. This is where the CCTV footage gets interesting. It shows just how crazy it got inside the depot.
Oh, I bet. So what happened?
Chaos. 7 guys. Balaclavas. Weapons everywhere. Handguns, shotguns, AK-47s. They rounded up all the staff. 14 people. Shouting. Threats.
Those poor workers,
Yeah.
outnumbered, outgunned. Must have been terrifying.
Absolutely. They tied everyone up. What's crazy is that nobody even tried to hit an alarm. Colin was there, remember? He told everyone to cooperate. His wife and son were still hostages.
It's awful. He was forced to help them.
So what happened next? Did they just start loading up the money?
Well, they tried. Their plan hit a snag, though. They were going to load the cages full of money into the lorry. But those cages were heavy. Really heavy. They tried using a forklift. But one of the Securitas workers, he kept crashing it on purpose.
Good for him.
Yep.
That's brave. It was. But that and the sheer amount of cash, it messed up their plan. They ditched the cages, started grabbing bundles of cash just with their hands, shoving it into shopping trolleys, anything they could find.
Hold on. Shopping trolleys. They planned this huge heist, and they're using shopping trolleys.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. All that planning, and then this. But here's the craziest part. They had access to over 200 million pounds. But they only got away with 52,996,760.
What? They left money behind. Why?
They ran out of space. Can you believe it? They couldn't fit it all in the lorry. They left 154 million pounds in cash just sitting there.
That's unbelievable. Imagine their frustration. They should have gotten a bigger lorry.
Right, or a whole fleet of them. But they had what they had. They loaded up the lorry, locked the staff in empty cages, Colin's wife and son too, and they took off. 2:44 a.m. They pulled it off. The biggest cash robbery in British history. But that was just the beginning.
The aftermath must have been wild. The police had to be feeling the pressure.
You bet. This robbery, it shocked the whole country. Securitas and the insurers, they offered a £2 million reward for information leading to arrests and convictions. Biggest reward ever in the UK at that time.
Wow. So what happened next? Did those abandoned vehicles lead to anything?
They were crucial. That white van, remember? The one that belonged to a friend of Papa and Rusha. The police found it, abandoned in a hotel car park, and inside, a balaclava, a bulletproof vest, and a Scorpion submachine gun.
Talk about a direct link to the robbery.
It was, and there was more. 2 bags full of cash, over 1.3 million pounds of stolen banknotes. That was a huge break in the case.
A literal smoking gun. So they were closing in on Papa and Rusha.
They were. They also found those cages and other things in the depot. You're deadly. More evidence. And then, on Saturday, February 25th, They raided Bupapa and Rush's homes.
I bet they weren't expecting visitors. Did they find anything?
At Bupapa's house, they found his wife, but no evidence. But at Rush's place, bingo. Surveillance footage of Colin Dixon's house, weapons, and get this, detailed plans of the Securitas Depot.
So they had the whole thing mapped out. What else did they find?
It was like Christmas for the investigators. Balaclavas, Royal Mail clothes, the disguises, even a radio scanner tuned to the police. It was obvious that they were deeply involved.
So Buspapa and Russia were caught. What about Murray and Allen, the ringleaders? Did they get away?
Not for long. They knew things were getting bad. 4 days after the robbery, they took off. Amsterdam first, and then Morocco. Figured they could enjoy their millions in peace.
Of course. Sunny beaches, millions in cash. Classic. But did they stay hidden?
They tried to, but they spent money like crazy. Hard to stay under the radar when you're living like that.
It makes you wonder what their plan was. Did they think they could disappear forever?
Maybe, but it didn't last. June 2006. Just a few months after the heist. They're arrested in Rabat, Morocco.
So justice was served?
Not quite. See, they weren't arrested for the robbery itself. It was drug charges and assault. Made extradition tricky.
Ah, so they found a loophole. Must have been frustrating for the investigators.
Yeah, you bet. While the others were on trial back in the UK, Murray and Allen were fighting extradition from Morocco. And then it gets even more complicated. 2009, Lee Murray, he claims Moroccan nationality. And under Moroccan law, he can't be extradited to the UK.
Wow. He used the system to his advantage, so he just got away with it.
He dodged the UK, yeah. But not justice completely. He was put on trial in Morocco for the Securitas robbery. 25 years in prison.
So he ended up behind bars, just not in Britain. What about Paul Allen? Some story.
Different. He was extradited back to the UK, went on trial in 2008, said he was innocent, claimed he wasn't even one of the guys who went into the depot. But then, during a retrial in 2009, he changed his plea. Guilty. 18 years.
So eventually they all got caught. But what about the money? Did they ever find it all?
That's the thing. By 2016, 32 million pounds was still missing. It's thought that a lot of it just vanished. Organized crime, laundering, investments. Who knows?
So somebody out there is living pretty comfortably thanks to the Securitas heist.
Yeah. It's a crazy thought. But that missing money, it hurt a lot of innocent people too. Farmers near the depot. Criminals thought they were hiding the loot, started harassing them.
It's horrible. Victims long after the crime happened.
Exactly. These big heists, they have consequences you don't always see. And then there's Paul Allen. He was shot in 2019. Adds another layer to this whole thing.
Paul Allen was shot. What happened?
Someone attacked him at his house in North London. Left him in critical condition. He survived, thankfully. But nobody knows why it happened. Revenge. Something from the robbery? Who knows? We might never find out.
This whole story is wild. A depot in Tunbridge, international manhunts, millions of pounds, unsolved mysteries. It's a story of greed, audacity, and almost getting away with a perfect crime. Almost.
Yeah, it really is.
But it does make you wonder, could something like this happen again? Are things more secure now? What did we learn from the Securitas robbery? We want to hear your thoughts. Join the conversation online. Let us know what you think. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.